Let's be honest, everybody. If Furuta was tasked with picking out an intro song for the V organization to roll out into battle with, it would be something along those lines. So now whenever you guys see the V organization pop up in a new chapter, that is going to be the song playing in the back of your minds. You guys can thank me for that later, but besides that, this week's latest chapter of Tokyo Ghoul was very enjoyable to read. We are going to be talking about and discussing chapter 165 entitled Faded, and this was a very good chapter and had a lot to live up to because last week's chapter was very amazing. We had the Kaneki and Hide reunion that we waited for so long, but even though this week's chapter wasn't on that same level of amazement, this one did a lot of setup that we needed and allowed us to know what the next mission we are going to be going on for this arc. You can kind of view the first mission of this arc as the Kaneki retrieval arc because once Dragon manifested, everybody banded together to go rescue Kaneki, and once they extracted him and helped him regain consciousness, they've kind of had a little bit of downtime until this chapter, just allowing themselves to recuperate and figure out what they need to do next moving forward. And the next mission they have set out in front of them is trying to find a cure for this ghoulification process, turning all humans into ghouls. But not only that, they also have to try to find the source of the toxins that is causing this ghoulification. So I'm really glad that Ishida set that up in this chapter with Kaneki and the gang, but then also on the other side of the spectrum, he's also setting up what the villains are going to do, but also what our neutral parties will be doing for the remainder of this arc, trying to hinder Kaneki and everybody else. We have the V organization popping up in this chapter, looking dapper as always with their hats, trench coats, and just slicing everybody up in their path. The clowns reappear in this chapter, which has me very excited because they are going to try to cause as much chaos as possible. But it's that last page of this chapter where I think a lot of people are going to start speculating this entire week because we see this monster Kagane descend from the heavens and has a striking similarity to Eto's Kagane and really does remind me when Eto descended from the heavens during the ending of part 1. I have a lot of questions right now with this dragon monster Kagane, Eto-like creature, like who in fact is it? This is going to lead to a lot of speculation this entire week until we get the next chapter, but this was a very good setup chapter by Ishida where he's really bringing back a lot of key points for this arc, and I'm really excited to see where we can go moving forward. So let's start back at the beginning of this chapter and work our way to that last page with that dragon Kagane monster. So with the first few pages of this week's latest chapter, we get to spend some time with some of our side characters during this downtime, just getting to see them recuperate just for a moment, but also get their mindsets in order before the next mission is about to start, but also before the V organization starts to make their move. And on the first page, we see Ui, Ito, and Bunjin kind of just relaxing for a little bit because they just got done fighting a whole bunch of Kagane monsters, and they start, talking about the ROS, how ghoulification is affecting all the humans. But the piece of conversation that I really liked in this section is that they asked Bunjin why he stuck around, because he could have easily just left with Yoriko to go off on his honeymoon. But in all honesty, it wasn't really his decision to kind of stay here. It was mostly Yoriko's, because Yoriko understands the job of a CCG investigator. So she told Bunjin, it's like, you need to stay here and fight. You're not the type of person to run away from this type of situation. And plus, Yoriko married Bunjin understanding what that job entailed of being a CCG investigator. I really do like this whole situation because it really goes to show how understanding Yoriko is, but also she's just a really good wife to Bunjin. So I am really hoping that later on, after this arc and all is said and done, they can consummate their marriage and go on their honeymoon. And then we switch over to our little Psycho still suffering from ROS, looking like a unicorn with that Kagane protruding from her forehead, and she is surrounded by the remaining QS members of Mitsuki, Aura, Xiao, and Higemaru. And I like this panel not only because we get to see Mitsuki and Aura actually worried about Psycho, but I like the added detail that Ishida threw in there, showing how deeply affected Xiao is by Psycho's current condition, because throughout the series, from Xiao's introduction up until this point, we've known that Xiao has some type of feelings for Psycho, whether they be platonic or romantic. I just like adding that in there because it stays consistent with her character and her feelings towards little Psycho. So as we make our way through this chapter, we actually come to learn about some new pieces of information pertaining to Dragon. We come to learn that there are 9 oviducts in total spread throughout the 23 wards. 8 of them currently are still active, but we have one currently going through a disintegration process. That one most likely is pertaining to when Furuta extracted Rize, but there is one oviduct in particular that is actually very special because that said oviduct is creating the toxins causing the ghoulification. And the reason that they're able to obtain this key piece of information was all thanks to Kimi. Because she was able to examine these Kagane monsters excreting this toxin, she now knows that they come from an area around this particular oviduct. These Kagane monsters act like a hive mind to where these Kagane monsters are the drones carrying the toxins and they can't really travel too far away from their mothership that is this particular oviduct. So this is some good information that Kaneki and the gang definitely needed, and Kaneki, thanks with the help from Hide, end up devising a plan that a small group of them will sneak their way over to this oviduct, try to discover the source of the toxins, and hopefully stop the ghoulification process from happening. There's just one small problem though. Ghouls can also be affected by the ROS toxins, so not many people can get close to the oviduct like Kaneki can because Kaneki is immune to the toxins thanks to his organs within his body. But one person in particular is about to escort and sneak Kaneki over to this oviduct. Somebody that knows the area very, very well and has been down to the underground. Kaneki is about to be escorted by Ayato, his brother-in-law, and I did not know how badly I needed these two characters to interact because it has been a long time since Kaneki and Ayato actually had a decent conversation with each other. Because if you think about Tokyo Ghoul in general, whenever Ayato and Kaneki are together, they don't really talk much. Like, the last intimate moment these two characters had was back in part 1 when Kaneki gave Ayato the 103 bones treatment. Plus, we don't really know too much about Ayato's adventures down in the underground, but now that he's about to be with Kaneki, I'm hoping this sheds some light on some of the stuff that Ayato did learn while he was down in the underground and while he was interacting with those dwarf ghouls that just spoke gibberish the entire time. So I am really looking forward to this team up of Kaneki and Ayato, but the ending of this section does really go to emphasize that Kaneki is starting to rely on others, because with the ending of this scene, we see Yomo and Banjo, Tsukiyama and Nishiki looking at Kaneki, and Urei walks in and puts his hand on his shoulder and basically says, "Don't worry about the V organization and don't worry about everything above ground. We got this. I'm going to leave to you curing Yonebayashi. You go do that, we'll go deal with this." I really do like this moment. And we even have these awesome panels of him looking at his two best people in his life, Hide and Toka, and she's like, "Just make sure that you come back home safely." And he's like, "I will." And in full Terminator mode, basically says back, "I'll be back." So that right there is what's going on with our heroes in the first half of this chapter. But the second half of this chapter mainly deals with our villains and our neutral parties starting to make their move. And we see the V organization pop up in this chapter, and it's been very weird so far with this arc with the V organization because they tend to attack and then retreat, attack and then retreat. But you gotta admit, these guys know how to make an entrance. They're wearing the matching hats, they got the trench coats on, they have their swords, and they are just obliterating anything in their path. And it's safe to say that the V fodder is in for a rude awakening in this chapter, because once Hide gets done informing Marude on the entire situation, we see Marude get on the loudspeaker and he starts to inform Juzo, Hirako, the QS squad, Tsukiyama and Nishiki of what they need to do. He tells them, it's like, "Hey, the V organization has decided to come to our front door. Why don't we go greet them?" And my God, the V fodder gets utterly decimated. But this section kind of makes you wonder how the V organization ties into Furuta's overall grand master plan, because the V organization's main goal is to maintain the peace between the humans and the ghouls, but also to lie to the public about how the world works. But when you're reading this chapter and you see all of these V members just getting decimated, they look like lambs to the slaughter. What are they trying to hinder and what are they trying to hide from everybody finding out right now? Because there's a line from Ui to where he feels very uneasy about this overall situation, because it seems as if there's some type of inconvenience that Furuta and the V organization is trying to hide from everybody else. The only problem is, Ui cannot complete that conversation he's having with Hirako because it appears as if Keiko, the guy with the sword, just comes out of nowhere and starts to battle with Hirako. And they start to do like a little dance with their swords, blocking every blow. This is an awesome scene to see, but it kind of makes you wonder, it's like, what are they trying to fulfill and what are they trying to gain from this altercation? So that right there is basically where we're left off with the V organization in this week's latest chapter. But then we move over to our neutral party where we get to see the clowns make their reappearance in this chapter, and this has me very, very excited because as we know, the clowns just want to cause chaos. They don't really pick a side, even though they kind of are aligned with Furita. I don't really see them actually helping out the V organization as a whole, but just getting to see Nico, Donato, Uta, and Itari standing on the buildings, just looking down on everything. This has me excited for what they are about to do moving forward in future chapters to come. But I am specifically very excited for Itari because Itari has not seen combat as of yet. We have not seen her fight, and I definitely want to see what type of Kagane she has, whether she has Okakaja. So if we get to see her fight in the next couple chapters, I will be very pleased with what we get. But as we kind of see with the clowns in this chapter, they are basically saying very cryptic dialogue. They're being very mysterious with their overall plans, but it's this piece of dialogue where they're basically saying, it's like, it seems to be having the opposite effect according to Furita's plans. It seems like we're going to have to stall for time. And then Donato says, indeed, put her, that, to use. And you kind of scratch your head and it's like, they're being very cryptic right now. What does that dialogue mean? Put her, that thing, to use. And as we find out, as we make our way to the final page of this chapter, we end up seeing this monstrosity falling from the heavens. NANI? We see this gigantic, ugly-looking monster of a Kagane descend down from the sky and is getting ready to decimate all the investigators looking back on it in fear. Now, this last page is going to lead to a lot of speculation because we have no idea what this is or who it may be. But based on Donato's dialogue saying that, like, put her to use, we can infer most likely that this is a female character, maybe in a Kakaja-like state. Now, there's going to be many names thrown out there, and some of them could possibly be it, some of them could just be random, but I have at least 4 names that could most likely be this identity, some being stronger than others, but the big possibility of this being Rize is very strong because we have not seen Rize in quite some time, or at least in a few chapters since Furita extracted her from Dragon. So this could be Rize, maybe in a Kakaja-like state. That is a good possibility. But another possibility is Eto. Now, we have not seen Eto. We do not know if she's dead or alive, but as the rule goes, if you do not see a character die on screen or die on panel, they are most likely still alive. So maybe Furita or the V organization took her body, maybe made her a nuclei within Dragon, and now we're seeing Eto, you know, in Kakaja state, maybe just deformed thanks to Dragon. And it would really tie in with Eto because this dragon monster of a Kagane descended from the sky, much like Eto did during the ending of part 1. Another possibility, though it being small, this could possibly be the original one-eyed ghoul, the original one-eyed king from the underground, but I don't really put too much merit within that being the case. But I do have a crazy theory. After rereading this chapter multiple times, this kind of popped into my head, and it could be a possibility, but I would not be mad if it was wrong. What if this was Itari in a Kakaja-like state? And the reason I'm thinking Itari, because it would still tie in with Donato's dialogue where he says, put her to use. We have not seen Itari in combat. She has mostly been in the background and really hasn't been much of use. So maybe he was telling Uta, hey, put Itari to use, have her go out there in a Kakaja state and start attacking everybody. It's a long shot, and I don't really think that is the case, but I still think it would be very interesting if this actually turned out to be Itari. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for my review on chapter 165. This was a very good setup chapter, getting us to see what the next mission entails for Kaneki and Ayato. I am very excited to see where that goes moving forward, but also there's going to be a lot of speculation, and I'm very curious to see what this Kagane monster on the final page, what the true identity of it actually ends up being. And I'm really curious to see what else happens with the V organization and the clown organization as well. So I definitely want to hear your thoughts on this week's latest chapter, guys. Your thoughts, theories, and speculations. Leave those down in the comments below, and I definitely want to hear your possibilities and speculations on who this Kagane monster might be. But also, guys, if you want to talk about Tokyo Ghoul outside of YouTube, feel free to follow me on Twitter. A link for my Twitter account can be found in the description below. But that's going to be it, guys, for chapter 165. Chapter 166 comes out next week. But until then, guys, I'll talk with you guys then. See you later, guys.